In the top story today, we look at one of the major challenges in preparing for interviews, developing the questions to be asked. There are some common ground rules to consider in developing good interview questions. Most importantly, people involved in the hiring process need to utilize the knowledge, skills, and abilities, or KSAs, found on the job description. These will help frame the questions, which must be strictly job-related. Again, the KSAs describe what the job requires, so this is where the focus should be. The questions should be prepared in writing and be objective, without bias or prejudice. The best questions are straightforward and certainly without the intent to trick the candidate. Having an expert from your civilian personnel office look over your questions in advance of the interviews is a great idea. They can provide a fresh perspective and ensure you're staying on the right track. Interview questions are subject to review should the hiring selection be questioned, so due diligence is highly recommended. Let's go now to our field reporter who has some important information concerning prohibited questions and topics.
Thanks. Yes, there are quite a few prohibited questions and topics to consider when preparing for interviews. The U.S. government's Office of Personnel Management, or OPM, has quite a few guidelines for this area, and some questions are illegal. In fact, under no circumstances can an interviewer ask questions regarding age, citizenship, race, color, economic status, religion, or sex.
You mentioned age as being illegal. What happens if the position has an age restriction?
Great point. If there is a requirement, say for age, AFPC and the local HR office will verify the required information or the restriction itself. For example, firefighters have an entry age restriction of 37. Anyone over 37 is restricted from applying, and this would be part of the application screening process prior to the certificates being issued. Now, since I used the firefighters as an example, I should point out there is an exception to that particular age rule. A recently retired active duty military member who was a firefighter would be exempted from that restriction.
Most of the illegal questions you mentioned seem to be cut and dry, but are there gray area questions as well?
Absolutely. Questions regarding security clearances or education can fall into the gray area. An interviewer can let a candidate know the position requires a particular clearance, but he cannot flat out ask if the employee has a clearance. Similarly, an interviewer can address education requirements as they pertain to the KSAs of a job, but they must avoid questions concerning the religious affiliation, nationality, or racial aspects of a school. In general, if the question is not related to the specifics of the job being filled, the question can't be asked. Bottom line again, all questions must be related to the position.
How personal can an interviewer get? Can they ask questions concerning a candidate's marital status, the characterization of their military discharge, or a possible police record?
Well, again, and I realize I sound like a broken record, but the questions need to be strictly job-related. There are no legal questions that can be asked regarding a member's marital status or family situation, nor can you ask a candidate if he or she was honorably discharged from military service. If information needs to be verified, that will be done through official channels. As for police records, an interviewer can't ask if the member has been arrested. However, if the job being filled has special requirements, say for bonding, the interviewer could ask a question such as, "In order to fill this job, you must be bonded. Will this present a problem for you?"
You've mentioned quite a few prohibited questions, but there are some more general topics as well that must be avoided.
That's right. One of the first that should be mentioned is personal plans. There are no legal questions for this subject. Questions like, are you planning on living in the area for a long time, or are you considering having more children? They cannot be asked. That also goes for questions regarding the work schedule and travel. Any travel requirements should have been included in the job announcement, and so asking if an expectation of traveling, say, 1 week a month, if that would be a problem, is okay. However, you can't ask any questions relating to childcare, mode of transportation, or any other non-job related information. Interviewers also need to stay away from asking questions pertaining to organizational affiliations and whether the candidate plans on participating in certain activities, such as contributing to the CFC or joining a professional association.
It sounds as though an interviewer needs to be careful when asking questions.
Well, the bottom line is sticking to what is required of the job. Knowing the rules and working closely with the Civilian Personnel Office will go a long way in keeping you out of trouble.
Thanks for the great report. You can view OPM's full list and rationale for prohibited questions and topics in your reading material. This has been a production of CPMC News.